Skip, life isn't the Truman Show.
No, it's not.
Chip the jokester. What'd you think of these comments, this new Chip?
Stephen A. Smith, give me just a second here on one of your favorite people, Chip Kelly, and one of my favorite people. This guy is a piece of work. To me, this just might have taken the cake as the most smug and condescending and delusional and arrogant and just flat out wrong-headed 1-minute interview. We just heard 1 minute of him in the history of interviews. Now, suddenly, as Molly just alluded to, Chip is a jokester. So presumably it took him a whole week to do his first press conference after he was announced in San Francisco, to do it in San Francisco, I guess because he was working on his jokes. But Chip, at least get your jokes right. So we start out, he dismisses everything that happened in Philadelphia with a joke. That at least he's ruled out, and he referred to the game of Clue. Now, I assume many people have played Clue.
I
you
have,
played Clue?
yes.
Throwback. Did you play Clue when you were a kid? I did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so he got Colonel Mustard right, because we all know Colonel Mustard is always a suspect in Clue. But there's no parlor room as a potential venue for the murder to have been committed. There's no parlor room in the game.
No parlor room.
And there's no blunt object in the game. I can list all the weapons if you like, but I won't digress. So he blew the next two references. So Chip, if you're going to make a Clue reference, at least get it right so it's funnier, because it would sound like you actually have played Clue. And to me, Stephen A., it once again shows us all this man doesn't have a clue. Now, we go to number two. He makes a reference to Jim Carrey's movie, The Truman Show, and he says, life isn't always scripted like The Truman Show. Chip, the Truman Show was not scripted. Jim Carrey's stuck inside a TV show. For a long time, he doesn't know he's on TV. He's just living his life, but it's on TV. And then he tries to escape from his unscripted. Okay, so Chip, 0 for 2 on your attempts at humor and pop culture. Now we go to number 3. As Molly suggests here, this was the all-time name drop. So Chip is trying to say that during my time off, after he got fired, or presumably before his first press conference, he is seeking the counsel of his close personal friends and mentors. In order, he mentions Dick Vermeil, who coached in 2 Super Bowls and did win 1, and Bill Parcells, we all know, he coached in 3 Super Bowls and won 2. Then he goes to Belichick, and they are friends, but Bill obviously has coached in 6 Super Bowls and won 4. And he throws in Nick Saban, who is 5-0 in national championship games. And Chip fits into that group how? Not at all, because Chip Kelly, if memory serves, he's coached in 1 NFL playoff game and lost that one. And he did coach in 1 national championship game, but he did lose that one. And at Oregon, he was 2-2 in bowl games. So to name drop like that as if you belong in that company is just absurd. It is insufferable, and he has been all-time insufferable as he starts his 2nd job in San Francisco. And I say good luck to the 49ers and their fans. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I appreciate your position. I appreciate your passion. You're right on the money with everything that you're saying. I'm going to take it a step further. I was incredulous watching it. I was also incredibly annoyed. Simply because when you talk about your time off, literally the fact that you even mentioned 2 weeks shows how disgusting and disgraceful this whole situation is. I'm going to reiterate what I've said on many occasions. Nobody is here to question the coaching acumen of Chip Kelly. He clearly knows how to coach the game of football. He had 2 10-game winning seasons. I'm not here to refute any of that. I totally understand why people would look at him and say that, you know what, the man can coach the game of football. But last time I checked, particularly when it comes to the National Football League, being a leader of men is supposed to count for something. And clearly that's what he was strongly devoid of. So much so that it's on the record on numerous occasions how he's alienated players, how he's alienated coaches, and clearly how he alienated ultimately executives, because Jeffrey Lurie, who obviously is a first-class owner in the National Football League, would not even allow this man to stay for the last game of the regular season. He said, you need to go right now. You just need to be out of here. He alienated everybody around him. And then he name drops, and we understand the name dropping. Okay, that's fair enough. But I'm wondering why Bill Parcells, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, Dick Vermeil, or any of these guys, I'm wondering why they even met with him. Because really, it's not about coaching. Because we know that you understand the X's and O's. Nobody should ever accuse Chip Kelly of being devoid of that ability. The problem is, can you lead men? And how can you ingratiate yourself with today's generation of players? And to me, I'm wondering, why would you go to them instead of going to some modern day coaches? I would have had more respect for Chip Kelly had he sat down with Mike Tomlin. I would have had more respect for Chip Kelly had he sat down with Sean Payton. I would have had more respect for Chip Kelly if he sat down with a Tony Dungy, individuals like that. Not to poo-poo any of the guys that he mentioned, because Nick Saban is all world, at least on the collegiate level. We know that. Bill Parcells, his record is not to be questioned or impugned in any way. And the same goes for Bill Belichick, because he's done it and he's still doing it. But I'm just saying, he gives the impression that all there was to be concerned about was football, when in fact that wasn't the concern with Chip Kelly at all. Certainly, it would be helpful if you didn't just obliterate your defense by keeping them on the field, because you were hurry-upping and on offense all day long, and as a result, the defense got minimal time to rest. Certainly, that's an adjustment he could be made. But outside of that, on the football field, when you look at Chip Kelly, it wasn't about that. It was about his ability to deal with modern-day men that you have to coach. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the fact that he didn't bring that up, the fact that he wasn't probed about that, I'm not here to critique or insult colleagues or contemporaries, people that interviewed him or whatever the case may be. All I'm saying is, what disgusted me, Skip, was that there was this impression that you were in Philly. Well, what went wrong when you end the season and you're missing the playoffs? No, that wasn't the problem with Chip Kelly. The problem with Chip Kelly isn't his football acumen. It isn't X's and O's. It's his ability to lead men and to deal with men and to ingratiate himself with the modern-day NFL player. And the fact that that wasn't addressed at all, and that he wasn't willing to broach it and to really discuss it, shows me that it's more of the same, and that he needed considerably more time off to really embrace and grasp and inhale the era of his ways. Unfortunately, it was a little over 2 weeks, and that was all, which to me was nothing more than a vacation to the islands. It's a damn shame that that's the way that it is, but I'm not surprised. It speaks to the culture that still exists to at least some degree in the National Football League, and it's sad.
Well, to your point, Chip was given every opportunity during that press conference with questions like, what did you learn or what did go wrong in Philadelphia? And he dismissed every one of them. To your point, nobody held his feet all the way to the fire. No criticism of them. But he was given the opportunities to volunteer. I learned this, I learned that, and he dismissed every question as if, what are you asking me that question for? I don't need to learn anything. He's still the smartest man in the room. Go ahead.
A couple of things. In fairness to you, just wanted to make sure. I watched, but I couldn't hear because he came on while I was doing my radio show. So I don't know what questions were or were not being asked. I had surmised that people were asking him, what happened in Philadelphia? What did you learn? What I'm looking for is direct questions about what LaShawn McCoy said. Direct questions about what Trey Thomas alluded to. Direct questions about what other players on the Philadelphia Eagles, including Boykin with the Steelers and others that played under Chip Kelly, all alluded to. This is the issue. This is the problem with Chip Kelly. And if he wanted to be smug or evasive about it, let him be that way towards direct questions about those issues, because that's the issue with this man. It's nothing else. It's that stuff that he needs to address, because it directly entails what his ability to lead or not be able to lead grown men in the National Football League.
So, do you have some?
Yeah, I just want to play devil's advocate really quick, Skip, and then I want you to stay on topic here. How do we know that's not his way of saying that he has learned and he's asking them how to lead men, when he's name-dropping that he's meeting with these greats to try to grow?
Okay, maybe, but the all-time offensive answer to me for those fans in Philadelphia, and Stephen A. knows Philly like nobody else because he worked there for almost 17 years as a newspaper reporter and columnist, but to be asked by our Shelley Smith what went wrong, what happened in Philadelphia, to say, well, we've ruled out Colonel Mustard. That is so offensive.
Dismissive.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just completely dismissing
right.
everything that happened in Philadelphia. He's making a joke about something that, as Stephen A. will attest, those Eagle fans, they're about as diehard as any fans I have ever encountered. They were devastated. I know several here at ESPN. They were devastated by this football season because they had such high hopes. They were the consensus pick, not only to win the East, but to be a factor to get to this year's Super Bowl. And it was a disaster. And Chip has to take a little blame for it, just a little bit. But he took absolutely none. Go ahead, Stephen A.
Well, the thing about it is, and I'll address your question, Molly, because here's the thing. He took absolutely no accountability for it. He was aloof and dismissive, as always. You got to take that into account. And when you sit there and say or ask the question, Molly, how do we know? The point is, the mere fact that you're asking that question is the problem, because we should have answers. Chip Kelly should have provided them, and he should not have had to have been probed in order to do so. But even despite being probed, he still didn't take the liberty of doing so. And so that speaks to his unwillingness to address the real elephant in the room. Chip Kelly wants to make this about an unsuccessful season record-wise. He wants to make it about questions about his leadership ability as it pertains to him being in control of player personnel and picking the players. That's what he wants to do. He wants to skirt around this issue instead of addressing it head on, which is why I find it incredibly alarming that he landed a job inside of 3 weeks of being dismissed as a head coach in the National Football League, with all of these coordinators, all these positional and skill coaches, all of these guys starving for opportunities to be a head coach in the NFL. He gets the opportunity when he flunked miserably, primarily because of his inability to communicate and lead men who play in this National Football League. The fact that he can end up with a job so quickly, okay, it just says to me, it's just very alarming. And then you got somebody like Trent Baalke, who's known for not talking to the media, who's known for not giving 2 cents about what anybody in the media thinks. He just avoids them at all costs, from what I have been told about him. This is the one would argue that's the reason Baalke probably endorsed Chip Kelly coming on board, along with some others in the organization, of course, because they want to adopt that mentality. They want to distance themselves from the public. They want to distance themselves from the pressure of being probed about not just what they do, but who they are, what they stand for, and why. And for San Francisco to embrace that, I find it to be alarming. I think Colin Kaepernick should be worried. I think other players on that squad should be very, very worried.
Leaving it there? All right, so basically he picked the wrong time to bring levity to the situation, and the stand-up routine not accurate there as well. Skip addressed. All right, let's